This is Basement Sports Talk with your host, Brennan,
And Richie.
and a new special guest for the day.
Gianni.
Today we will be giving some NBA Eastern Conference standings predictions. We're going to kind of gauge where we think each team's going to be at, talk about their offseason moves, losses, and everything of the sort. Starting with the 15th place in the Eastern Conference, I have the Washington Wizards going 15-67. This team is going to be a absolute shit show. The first thing that kind of alarms you about their offseason was drafting Alex Sarr, which he was projected to be the number one pick for the majority of the offseason, and he ended up falling to 2 because there was questions about whether he'd want to go to Atlanta and stuff like that. And even though Summer League isn't a great gauge on how a player ends up, he had so atrocious of a Summer League to where it's kind of alarming everybody. They also drafted Bub Carrington, who on the other hand has actually looked solid, so he could be a good young guard for them in the future. Still have Jordan Poole, still have Kyle Kuzma, but with the way this team meshes, you're going to have a ton of players who are not talented enough, isoing, shot creating. You have a guy like Bilal Coulibaly. He looks to be solid in his young career. You traded away Denny Odija for some draft capital. Really, this is just a team tanking. They're probably going to be contending for top 3 lottery odds easy.
Yeah, so I wasn't a big fan of the Denny Avdia trade. I mean, you get Malcolm in return. You could flip him for some stuff. I like it for the Blazers, though. They get a guy who's been developing well the past few years. But, yeah, I mean, the Wizards are going to be one of those teams you'll, catch a game every once in a while to see how the young guys are doing. Maybe a Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma masterclass every once in a while. But, other than that, they're going to be awful.
It might be such a shit show that it's, fun to watch. And, you never know how a Wizards game is going to go. I mean, defensively, it looks like a nightmare. Even assuming Alex Sarr is all right defensively, it's still a defensive nightmare. And offensively, it's an even bigger nightmare just because none of those guys are going to be able to mesh.
I have nothing much to add to this. I agree.
At 14th, we have the Brooklyn Nets, which is actually one of the teams that I believe had the best offseason of anybody. But they're going to be a horrible team next year. The biggest move that they made right off the bat was trading Mikal Bridges to the Knicks for 5 first-round picks. That is a outstanding haul for Mikal Bridges. And then they followed it up with the extension of Nick Claxton, which I like. He's a good young big. And then they also made a trade with Houston to acquire their old first-round picks that the Nets traded in the James Harden trade. So essentially, the Nets now have the option to tank again, because if they have a horrible losing season, they will own their pick and get their high pick.
No, yeah. I mean, at least pretty much the only good thing you can say with the Nets is that at least they know where they're going. They got rid of Mikal Bridges. You know they're going to stink. They got their picks back, which was huge. And you're going to see some good Cam Thomas games. But other than that, I mean, this team's going to be boo-boo fart, just like the Washington Wizards.
I think the good thing with them is they at least have some good role players like Dorian Finney-Smith and Cam Johnson. But besides that, they're going to be pretty trash.
I would say that the Nets end up going about 21-61. 13th in the conference, we have the Chicago Bulls. The reasoning here is they're kind of getting ready to go in tank mode. They traded Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey straight up. And people have differing opinions on that. I mean, you got younger, and this team was stuck in purgatory. You traded DeMar DeRozan as well to the Kings for essentially nothing, but that's okay because you're trying to tank. You still have the Zach LaVine situation in the air, but you have some potentially exciting players like Kobe White. You have Patrick Williams on the roster still, and you drafted Montez Buzelis, who is one of the more exciting rookies this year, I would say. So overall, I like what Chicago did. They picked a direction, and they're probably going to suck, but that's a good thing for them.
Yeah, so for the Bulls, I think they're going to kind of be in the same area as the Nets for win totals. They still got players on the team where, they're not just going to be dreadful to watch. They still have players, but they're not going to win most of their games. They're definitely going to still win. I think both teams are probably going to win between 20 to 25 games. And I got the Wizards still probably at like 15. I think they're going to be awful again this year. Not a hot take, but yeah, I got the Nets and the Bulls around the same spot, and yeah, them chilling at the 13 spot.
Bulls will probably be looming somewhere in those low 20s. Next up with 12th place in the East, we have the Detroit Pistons. What the Detroit Pistons really have on their side here is continuity. Of course, they had a historic losing streak last year, but with bringing in new coach J.B. Bickerstaff, former coach of the Cavs, you just hope that some things work better. You drafted Ron Holland. He could be cool. You hope for development of your young players, and you hope to just not be as bad as you were. You still want to be in the lottery because you still want to add to Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, and Cade Cunningham, as well as Azar Thompson. You just want to see player development and a slightly better team this year if I'm a Pistons fan. Probably still going to be mid-20s in wins.
Yeah, so not much to say about, these lower teams. I think they're definitely going to have a better year than last year. They're finally going to, I could see them having, a little, 6-game, 5-game win streak or something. They're going to put something together, but it's still going to be a rough year. They're going to really need, Cade Cunningham really has potential, but everyone else on that roster is very questionable. Jaden Ivey's been, he still obviously has a lot to show, but.
Jalen Duren's been a stud.
Yeah, Duren has been a stud. I forgot about Duren, but other than that, it's been a little questionable. But yeah, I think this team's going to be chilling at 12 this year. Not a great year, but at least some type of improvement.
So at the 11th seed, barely missing the play-in, we have the Atlanta Hawks. For the Hawks, you made the DeJounte Murray trade, get some draft capital. The Trae Young DeJounte Murray connection really just didn't work out, and I'm happy that they were able to figure that out early, kind of put themselves behind that. They still have a solid big man rotation, Jalen Johnson, Onyeka Okongwu, and Clint Capella. So that's enough there's enough talent on this team, including Trae Young, to be above these other four, but I still see a pretty rough season in their future. Loss of Sadiq Bey. They got younger with Dyson Daniels and stuff like that. The drafting of Zachary Reese-Shea. We have no idea how he's going to perform his rookie year. So the Hawks are one of the weirder teams to place, but I feel pretty okay placing them at 11.
Yeah, I agree. Probably 11th seed. I think Trae Young might have a pretty big season because he doesn't probably feel the need to share the ball as much with DeJounte gone. But, yeah, I don't think they're going to do too hot.
Real.
Yeah, I mean, they still got pieces. They could 100% be an 8 seed, but it takes 1 month of Trae Young being out, and he's been in and out the past few years, so I don't know. This team could be the worst team in the league if Trae Young's out for a while, or they could be a 8-7 seed, but time will tell.
10th place, making it into the play-in, we have the Charlotte Hornets. The biggest thing the Hornets have on their side is continuity. Most of the guys on this roster have been together for a while. And something that they've kind of been cursed by the past few seasons is the no availability between LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges, obviously for different reasons. But if those guys are on the floor more, mixed with the continuity of this roster, you should hope that they're able to make a 10th seed, 9th seed, 8th seed, something of the sort. And yeah, that's really all I have to say about the Hornets.
This is kind of like our big kind of jump team. This team could be really bad still, really, really bad. But we're hoping for continuity. They have, Miles Bridges, LaMelo Ball, Mark Williams has been a dog. They got playmakers and scorers on the team. They made the Gordon Hayward trade for Trey Mann, correct? Yeah, I honestly really like that trade. That's a good little bench spark piece. Grant Williams is just a good veteran to have. It's going to be interesting to see if they can really make this 10 seed, but there's going to be a lot of bad teams in the East this year, and we're kind of banking on the continuity and health of the Hornets to put them in the play-in for the first time in a while.
9th place, we have the Raptors. I mean, this is still a team that's rebuilding, but there's talent on this roster. And I would say there's more talent on this roster than the other rosters we talked about thus far. Scotty Barnes, R.J. Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and just some guys Bruce Brown, some guys that can really play NBA basketball, proven NBA players. And that's something that can't be said about all of these other teams at the bottom. So I just see the Raptors being a little bit better than these teams, still making it, still probably missing the playoffs and making the lottery, but you never know how it goes.
Yeah, the Raptors just have so many good pieces. Scotty Barnes is obviously a top young player in this league, and they have pieces all around. R.J. Barrett was playing good. Manuel Quickley, obviously, just all the moves they made. They've really picked up a lot of good young talent, and they're a lot deeper than any of the other teams we've listed. The Hawks may have. It's kind of competitive in the depth, but the injuries are so interesting. But the Raptors just have a lot of players that can easily make this team a top 10 in the East.
8th seed will have the Heat repeating at this position. Really all that they did this offseason was get a little bit worse with the loss of Caleb Martin. They also drafted Khalil Ware, which he could be a cool young center for this team. I mean, we know how these Miami Heat seasons go now. They're a solid team. Come playoff time, they're always an interesting team. They can always cause upsets. But they have a lot of talent on this roster still at the top with Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Jaime Jaquez, and Tyler Herro. So this will be a repeat of your traditional Heat season over the last few years.
Yeah, pretty much everyone's expecting this. They have, two top 15 arguable players when they're healthy. Bam might not be top 15, but you could maybe sneak him in there depending on who's healthy as Bam is a top 15 player. Maybe.
No. Bam is somewhere in the, if you're being nice, 25 to 35 range, I would say, of players. He's a good center in this league, but yeah, that's a little high.
And I was tweaking a little bit to Brennan, but they have top end talent in Jimmy Butler and Bam. The rest of the team's just always interesting though. Tyler Hero's been so hurt. It really sucks. It's just he'd be a huge part of that team to just have that bucket getter. Obviously, no Jimmy is, but a different variety of bucket getter. But Terry does help. I did forget about Terry. That does help a lot. But the rest of the team is it's lacking. But it's gonna be a classic Heat season. Gonna be the 8th seed. Definitely still gonna make the playoffs though.
7th seed, we're gonna go with the Orlando Magic. This is more so a case of I just feel like the rest of the East at the top getting better. The Magic did get better. Like they acquired KCP, which will help them out. They needed a 3-and-D 2 guard. Defensively, this is a really fun, intriguing team, but offensively, it's still a little questionable for the Magic. I have them taking a little bit of a dip this year, but that's more so just because of the talent of the East at the top.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see them doing too much just because how good the East is, but I think Paolo will continue to just get better. I think he's been pretty underrated, especially just by the media. But, yeah, I think they'll be a pretty solid team. You don't know what they could do in playoffs, but I think they'll be pretty good.
Yeah, the Magic are just they're one of those teams where they got a lot of talent, they got good players, but I just don't think they fit very well. You have too many guards that are very good defensively, but when it comes to getting a bucket or playmaking, it's questionable. And in the offseason, they went out, got KCP. That's a good move, but that's another guard that's gonna, play defense, not really playmaker, but whatever. They're gonna be a good team still. I think they're gonna be sitting right around 40 to 45 win mark. Same thing as the Heat. I think it'll be a pretty big jump between the Magic and the Heat versus the Raptors and the Hornets. But yeah, we got the Magic at number 7.
Yeah, so at the 6th seed, we have the Pacers. The Pacers made the conference finals last season, and this team really hasn't changed much from last year. I just think this is a case where the Pacers really benefited from injuries last year in the postseason, and I feel like they're going to have about a repeat performance from last year, but I just feel like some of these teams at the top are going to do a little bit better.
Yeah, you got to give them their props for making the conference finals, but we know it was a very injury-ridden postseason. But regardless, it's going to be a good team. You're not going to want to play them. Good offense, questionable defense, but they got a lot of just athletic players. A lot of players that can shoot the ball well too, and I don't see a crazy improvement. I see them getting knocked out of the playoffs definitely earlier, but pretty much a similar regular season for the Pacers.
Yeah, so the Pacers got a lot of athletic players, can really explode on fast breaks, but I think when it comes to playoff time when the game slows down, I think that'll kind of stunt them a little bit.
As a Cavs fan, I have the Cavs number 5. Really, all they did this offseason was draft Jalen Tyson. And this team hopefully will benefit from new head coach Kenny Atkinson. You hope that they can kind of work it out more with Garland and Mitchell. You hope that the spacing in the front court is kind of figured out with hopefully Evan Mobley developing his three-point shot a little bit more. But yeah, for the Cavs, I can't really put them any higher personally.
I know a lot of Cavs fans pretty mad that we didn't make many moves. I'm personally fine with us trying to run it back with the same core players since we kind of extended everyone, so we have them for a good amount of time. I hope the new head coach can help us figure things out. Hopefully Garland starts getting back on track. I think if we do figure things out, we could be insanely good, but until then, it might just be the same thing.
Yeah, so the Cavs are gonna be a team this year where, they could definitely be a top team in the league. There's just a lot of missing pieces. The head coach could have been a part of that, new hiring. We don't really know what's going on with Isaac Okoro and the Cavs, but I think a big thing that this front office and teams kind of wanting to see is let's run it back a year if we're healthy, see how far this team can go. And if injuries or anything else stops us from going far and looking good, then there's going to be major trades happening to this team. But they're going to be a dangerous and good team, and we got them at number 5.
Something to kind of watch with this team is just if Isaac Okoro signs a contract extension or not. As a Cavs fan, Okoro hasn't made huge strides since his rookie year here, but each year he does take a couple steps. Last year he became a more efficient corner 3 shooter, which is something this team needs, and he provides valuable perimeter defense, which is something that can sometimes be lacking because of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. And while Donovan Mitchell isn't a horrible defender by any means, in fact, sometimes he has great defensive stretches, he carries almost all of the offensive load, especially late in the season. So that's something the Cavs kind of have to figure out too, is they need people to become consistent scorers around Donovan Mitchell. And until that happens, they're probably going to be stuck here at 5. At the 5th seed, me and Gianni have the Sixers. They had one of the better off seasons in the league. They acquired Paul George and they acquired Andre Drummond, drafted Jared McCain. This is going to be a good team, but regular season, I kind of worry about them simply because their top 2 players, we can argue with Tyrese Maxey and Paul George, but I would still put Paul George above Tyrese. They're two of the most historically injury-ridden players, especially in the regular season, closing it out going into the postseason. But last year, Paul George's health was pretty all right. So depending on health, they could be higher. But here, it's just you worry about injury. Can Paul George and Joel Embiid play more than 65 games together in the regular season? We will see.
Yeah, so I agree with Brennan. I think injuries could definitely play a big part. I think the front office definitely knows about the injuries too, so I could also see them maybe, playing Paul George and Joel Embiid sparingly towards the end of the season. I also think their bench doesn't have a lot of depth. I could see Jared McCain, kind of being crazy this year, but nothing too much. But yeah, I think they fit pretty well at the 4th seed.
So this is when I'm going to be talking about the Milwaukee Bucks as the 4th seed. A little disagreement with Gianni and Brennan here. Personally, I could see the Bucks winning the whole thing. So honestly, there's a wide margin of teams I could see genuinely competing this year. It's just so much relying on health. And I could see the Bucks not playing Giannis and Dame exceedingly just because of what happened last year. I could see both of them kind of taking a step back in the regular season, not playing as serious, but we know how Giannis is. He's not going to be, chilling out. But I still think that these players are going to get rest as much as they can, at least. And I think this top 4 is going to be close, but I just got the Bucks maybe dealing with more injuries, maybe just playing players less, but definitely still a NBA Finals contender, no doubt.
So for me and Gianni's third seed, now we will talk about the Bucks. For the Bucks, your added benefit is more continuity. You're gonna have Doc Rivers in training camp, so he's gonna be the head coach for hopefully the full year. They have the full offseason to get acquainted with him. Whereas last year they hired Adrian Griffin, got fired mid-season, then had to adjust to Doc Rivers. So hopefully just consistent coaching will help them out here. They lost Malik Beasley and exchanged him for Gary Trent. Gary Trent should be a better player in theory. He's had struggles with inefficiency, but you hope that playing next to Dame and Giannis that Gary Trent is kind of able to return to like his 3-and-D qualities. Besides that, the Bucks' depth is a little bit questionable. They have Bobby Portis off the bench, but after that, you're looking at like Marshawn Beauchamp and guys like that. So I feel kind of comfortable putting them at 3. I feel like they'll be a little bit healthier than the Sixers in the regular season, but come playoff time, I feel like they would struggle with any of these teams above them, which would be the Knicks and Celtics, and they could even struggle with the Sixers.
Yeah, so last year they took a drop defensively. I think if they could get back to that, great defensive team, they could obviously be lethal. I mean, they already are like serious contenders. Could easily see them going to the championship again. I think if Brook Lopez returns back to DPOY form, then they could be outstanding on defense again.
Those boys could be cooking like some Wisconsin cheese curds. All right, keep it with us, boys. This is the third seed against, but this is just for Richie. I had a differing opinion. I got the New York Knicks. This team could be one of the best defensive teams we've seen maybe ever. They got people to clamp up anyone and everyone, but it's just the injuries with a lot of these teams. Mitchell Robinson's a huge piece to that defense. Having that big man that no one wants to go up against is huge. And they lost Ihart, which is a huge piece of that team. And, if they lose Mitchell Robinson, which has happened a lot, then the big man's going to be pretty questionable. But regardless, this team's going to be lethal. They're going to be nasty. They already have all the chemistry from Villanova. Now they're in the NBA. They got some playoff experience together. This team's going to be nasty, but I still see injuries messing them up, and I could just still see some inconsistencies in the year.
So me and Gianni agree that the Villanova Knicks will be the second seed this year. For the Knicks, obviously, like Richie mentioned, you lost Ihart. That's a big piece that you lost. But you also extended OG Anunoby, and you still have Mikal Bridges. You traded for Mikal Bridges, not still have. With this Knicks team, injury doesn't even worry me or bother me. This team, besides the center position, has some of the most depth in the league. They have more 3-and-D wings that they can throw at you than any other team in the league. And because of that, I feel like they're going to be stable for the whole regular season. Total up a high win total, possibly somewhere in the mid-50s, low 50s, mid-50s. And they're going to be the second seed in the East this year.
Yeah, same things. I just agree. The chemistry should be great just because of the Villanova stuff. They seem like they'll have pretty great personalities. They'll get along probably. Yeah, same thing with their bench. The center position will be questionable, but yeah, everywhere else, they're going to be dogs.
Hi, Philly. I got you at number 2. All right, this team, genuinely, if healthy, they can have the best record in the league, in my opinion. But we all know it's Paul George and Joel Embiid, probably like the 2 worst knee combo in the league besides Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. So it's going to be a very interesting season. They could be hurt. They could end up being the 7th seed, or they could be ridiculous. And pretty much I'm hoping for the upside for them. I like Joel Embiid, even though sometimes he's miserable to watch as a player, but I'm kind of rooting for this team in a way a little bit, but they got the talent everywhere. They could do it. There's multiple teams in the East that can, but I'm gonna have high hopes on the Sixers. Number 2, I'm thinking 62 wins on the year.
Rich making me think about cheesesteaks. All right, I'll do the next one. For the first seed, we're going to be shipping up to Boston. Shout out to Dropkick Murphys. We have the Boston Celtics at the first seed.
Yeah, so obviously as Cavs fans, watching this team play in the playoffs was pretty terrible. Obviously we didn't have D-Mitch and stuff, but I'm not going to talk about the Cavs. Yeah, the Celtics are just a great team, a lot of depth. Their starting five is just great. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown are probably going to go crazy again. Not much to really say because everyone knows how good they are, but yeah, I got them at the 1.
So for Boston, this obviously is quite possibly the most talented roster in the league. Defensively, they're a nightmare. Offensively, they're a nightmare. They might approach 60-win territory again. They were one of the better teams in league history last year, just based off of advanced statistics and finals regular season record. This is not a team that you want to meet, and it's basically the returning roster from last year, so good luck facing them in the playoffs. It's hard to see them being anything below the runner-up for the championship.
Yeah, so we already know about Boston's greatness, blah, blah, blah. But obviously they're going to be a great team again this year. Number 1 seed for me, too. But I feel like they're going to have a lot more struggles. Obviously, injuries were a big part of it. But, I mean, as crazy as the West is, and everyone likes to talk about the West, this Eastern Conference is, like, this shit's no joke, dude. And if teams stay healthy, the right teams stay healthy, I mean, we're going to see a dogfight. Celtics are going to be at the top of the dogfight still, but all-around great team. We're going to see how this NBA season plays out. We're going to look back on these, and, yeah. But these are our current, very early pre-season rankings of the Eastern Conference, and some slight disagreements with the boys, but all around pretty steady.
This has been Basement Sports Talk. Have a good one.